So like, this is the third video where I'm living in a completely different spot. I mean, it's the same house, it's just that I'm in a different part of the basement. Still don't have any real walls though, and you can't even see my game collection on the shelf from this angle. That's a shelf. This white bar is a shelf. But God forbid, you could see my underwear over there. This might be a recurring joke that I wasn't intending, but hey, at least I still got the futon. Except now it's purple.
Alright!
I'm in a bit of a bind. I have like 7 Pokemon scripts all about halfway done, and yet I don't have any real will to complete any of them or record footage for them. Why is that?
No.
After the time.
Okay.
Oh. You win.
This game is fucking trash. Are you serious?
I feel like more people would get mad at me for that than like, what the hell? What the? What?
No, Sonia, no! Yes, the badge collecting is going well because the game is very easy. Thank you for asking. I appreciate you checking in with me even if I play it up to be annoying. However, I wish that you would say something more substantial or interesting. Maybe that's something we could work on.
If you're disappointed with the games and the general direction the Pokemon series has been going, like I am, then nothing in this review will surprise you.
This tree symbolizes the entire game, the laziness throughout the entire game. No matter what excuse Game Freak tried to give for something like this, time, budget, money, staff, none of that is acceptable. The reason being what I said at the start of this video, it is the largest franchise of all time. It is above Disney by quite a bit. If you need more staff, get it. You have the money. If you need more money, you already have the money.
The games are riddled with bugs. I think these might be the buggiest games to come out in a decade. Some glitches are fine with me, like using an exploit to clone Pokemon, but then some of them break the game.
And certainly not a lazy cash grab that didn't add anything.
I think you get the point, right? Jiriam throwing his games across the room didn't set the record straight.
Yeah, despite how big of a deal it is, we're not actually going to be talking about this. I'm just visually explaining why it's been such a chore to actually crank out a Pokemon-related video. Instead, let's talk about something else Pokemon-related, something near and dear to my heart, promised to us by the Pokemon Company and Game Freak. Roll some more clips. Back when Pokemon was actually worth the $40 that it stood on, the company assured its fan base that as long as the franchise existed, we would always be able to take our beloved Pokemon with us as a team. Any Pokemon that we grew up and bonded with, we could be confident knowing that we can always use our favorite Pokemon, no matter what kind of future main series game awaited us.
They actually did say this. Of course, as I start working on this video, script and whatnot, I can't find the quote anymore. Game Freak's obviously trying to hide it.
Pokemon is one of the few games in the industry that allows people to continuously use their beloved monsters from game to game throughout the years. Even now, we can keep our Pokemon for use in future games. Future Ed, put that last part in quotation marks, thanks.
Since we're in the midst of Generation 9 either coming out or it's already out by now, I'd say now would be a great time to take all the Pokemon that I've befriended during my adventures and bring them home.
And seeing as how I'll already be in the midst of doing a game-changing transfer, I figured it would be fun to take a trip to yesterdecade, or two, God I'm old, and take a look back at how Game Freak allowed us to bring our Pokemon over from past generations. And then after we do that, we'll take a long, hard look at Pokemon Home, and see if it's worth the hype that people were selling me on. Let's start at the beginning. Or well, I guess 2 years after the beginning. Because of course you're not going to be transferring anything to Red and Blue. Honestly, I gotta give Game Freak a lot of credit for what I'm about to talk about. It's hard to see this amount of workaround done for any other game developer in recent years. As early as 1999, Gold, Silver, and Crystal gave us a rather outside-the-box method of interacting with Red, Blue, and Yellow. They provided to us a time machine. A time machine!
Getting a little ahead of us there, aren't you, Game Freak?
When you're so far behind the times that a character you made yourself builds a time machine more than 20 years before you build your own. God damn, Bill, you beautiful storage system legend. Okay, but for real, this mechanic in-game is really thought out, given that it was right before the world entered Y2K. This feature allows you to bring over Pokemon that you have from Generation 1 to Generation 2, and if you wanted to, you could even send them back to their original games. Backwards compatibility like this in a Pokemon game from 1999! How crazy is that? I think it should go without saying, but there are a few caveats here. Obviously, you need a link cable, which was very hard to find even back then. I should know! I have experience with that. More importantly, you can't send Pokemon introduced in Gen 2 over to a Gen 1 game. And any moves introduced in Johto can't be used in Gen 1's Kanto, so if you want to send a Pokemon back in time, you should check to make sure that they only have Gen 1 introduced moves. I don't even see a problem here. I mean, the move deleter exists for a reason. I'd also like to point out that not all 151 Kanto Pokemon can be found in Gold, Silver, or Crystal, so if you don't have a trade buddy that can help you, you can always bust out a second Game Boy and take a step back through time if you want to finish that dex.
Unfortunately, there was a massive setback with Generations 1 and 2, and I'm sure you all knew that I was going to bring this up eventually. There is no possible way to bring your Pokemon from Generation 2 to Generation 3.
Yeah, unfortunately, Game Freak had not yet developed the skills to be able to continue the tradition of taking your Pokemon with you, and thus, Pokemon that you owned inside of your Game Boy were stuck there, forever locked within the confines of Kanto and or Johto. My brain wasn't plugged into my head correctly during this stage of my life, so I can't really tell you what the public opinion of the setback was actually like back then. What I can tell you is that this little hiccup in Pokemon's history would eventually come back roaring and screaming in 2019, where it was brought up as an excuse to try and justify the Sword and Shield Dex almost said the accursed phrase loathed by the true Pokemon fans. Gotta be more careful going forward. Real quick, because I don't want to dwell on this, the reason many people have a problem with the disputed digital division is because they were literally being locked out from using a large number of Pokemon, possibly including their favorites, and have no way of knowing if they will be able to use these locked Pokemon in future games again. Maybe they'll show up, maybe they won't, and for some reason people are adamant that this should be the norm. I don't like how people are justifying this by bringing up the Gen 2 to 3 split, because it's literally stepping over the crux of the issue that most people have even today. I've argued before, and I'll argue again, that Pokemon has gone out of its way to make up for the Gen 2 to 3 split, even though they totally didn't have to. If we include every game in Core Generation 3 that was released, then we have access to every single Pokemon that was created at the time, with only 4 Pokemon being locked by limited time events or special conditions. It was a massive workout to group them all into one game, no doubt. But the point is that if you wanted to use a Ho-Oh and Ruby, you absolutely could. You weren't just locked out or told to wait until the next game for a small chance to use your beloved superior.
Before we move on to Generation 3 completely, I do want to mention that there are a few more features in Generations 1 and 2 related to transfer that I have not covered yet. I'm going to hold off on talking about them for right now though, because at the moment they're not really related to anything we're talking about regarding this generation of Pokemon. Don't worry though, we'll be returning to these games again when the time is right.
As I explained already, Generation 3 had no genuine way to bring over Pokemon from Gold, Silver, or Crystal. But that doesn't mean that folks were blocked out from using the Pokemon they loved. It simply meant that trainers had to start their collection from scratch. And with all these games to keep them busy, there was no better time to start filling up their Pokedex. From here on out, all Pokemon could be sent forward in time from game to game until our Pokemon reached the world of today, all arriving to the promised land, Pokemon Home. Like I said, there's a bunch of games in Gen 3 that all connect to each other, and with a little time and patience, and money, you can make a Pokemon team of your dreams made up of any Pokemon that existed at the time. As for me, well, in order to showcase the different generations of transfer, I need to get some Pokemon ready. Back in 2003, I was still a drooling moron, so Pokemon wasn't exactly something I could play at the time. I mostly just watched the anime. But that doesn't mean I didn't get to those games eventually. I actually have a copy of Ruby, Sapphire, and Leaf Green right here. I remember finally picking up these games from my siblings during my high school years. I just beat White 2 at the time and wanted to see what games I missed as a child. I knew that I still had them after all this time, so I dug them up from the family storage not too long ago and powered on my old Game Boy Advance. Or at least, I tried to. I have no idea where my Game Boy actually is right now, so I scoured my storage boxes to find it.
Alright, let's do some good old-fashioned excavation. I can't wait to build a shelf so I can put this on it.
Alright, I think the point has been made. Again, let's just skip to the end, shall we?
Well, to make a long story short, I could not find my Game Boy, so that kind of a letdown. But hey, look what I did find! My old GameCube! I can finally play WarioWare again!
Well, I may not have found my old Game Boy, but that doesn't mean I can't start this process. Right now, my goal for these games is simple. Look through the Hall of Fame and see if I can find my victory team, the teams that I beat Steven and Blue with. They might be here, they might be in future generations, or they might even be lost forever. There's only one way to find out, however. Let's crack open these bad boys and find my old friends. Unfortunately, I don't have a way to capture footage from anything before the 3DS unless I point my camera at the screen again, surprise surprise. So while I look for these Hall of Fame Pokemon off screen, allow me to talk to you for a little while about a unique method of transfer and storage available within Gen 3. This is a little game called Pokémon Box, Ruby and Sapphire. It was developed before the sale of Pokémon Colosseum and XD Gale of Darkness, and just like those games, it was also released on the Nintendo GameCube. Box was unique in that you can store your Pokemon from all of your Generation 3 games on it, like a storage gallery, viewable on your TV, complete with a little sprite diorama mode. And it allowed you to play Ruby or Sapphire on your TV if you had a Game Boy GameCube connector, which came with the game. How cool is that? I myself don't own this game, nor do I see any reason to go out and buy it nowadays, but having a way to store a bunch of Pokemon on a GameCube memory card was a really cute idea. And seeing as how people had a lot of work to do catching and collecting the Pokemon from all the Generation 3 games, storing them all in one place like Pokemon Box sounds like such a novel and fun idea for its time. Alright, so I'm editing this in post after I finished my script and I didn't really want to edit it much more. I just found out that Pokemon Box was only available in New York, as in, the only way to get a physical copy of this game is apparently through New York's Pokemon Center, and that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I wasn't interested in looking for this before because, well, why would I? But now I'm definitely not interested, knowing that there are probably only a few copies left in the world. What the hell, Game Freak? Alright, another tangent I didn't want to get into. Back to the video.
Oh, you managed to catch a Deoxys using an event in Fire Red? Ha, that's cute. Well, I managed to capture all 386 Pokemon, including the Deoxys, from every single Pokemon game, including Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, Fire Red, Leaf Green, XD, Colosseum Box, and I also got that Jirachi from the Colosseum bonus disc. And they're all saved on Pokemon Box. Beat that, loser.
Well, it was a bit of work, but I did find a few old friendos from at least one of these games. Castform, Manectric, Aggron, and Absol. That's 4 of my 6 from when I played through Sapphire, which is not bad. These were all I could find, so I'll have to look through my other games later and see where the rest of them went. I'm old enough now to see the value of keeping these guys around, so good luck guys, you are all going to be guinea pigs for a massive round of generational time jumps. Yep, we're Jimmy Neutroning this shit. There's not much more in Gen 3 for me to cover, so let's place these guys together in a separate box in preparation for what's to come. Oh yeah, if you plan to do this for yourself, make sure to place the Pokemon you want time traveling in your box and not your party. I may have just saved you from wasting time. If you thought that Generation 3 had a ton of games that were interconnected with each other, Gen 4 was given that torch and then proceeded to light the fire up in the night. There are so many apps and games where Pokemon can be passed around and used, but unlike in Gen 3, where that's all it could really talk about, Gen 4 has a lot more going on regarding moving Pokemon around that I'd rather focus on more. The Pokewalker is probably the most popular app that you can use with your Pokemon, and don't get me wrong, it's an amazing little trinket, but it's only usable with Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and to be blunt, I have no idea where my Pokewalker currently is. Probably in the same spot where I stashed my Game Boy. There's also my Pokemon Ranch, which is just Pokemon Box for the Wii, but all the Pokemon that are sent there look like figures made for a bowling alley crane game, and you can only move Pokemon between this title and the Diamond and Pearl duology. Again, it's a cute little title, but not really a silly novelty that I find myself admiring like Pokemon Box. Gen 4 was an era for me where I lost basically everything that I touched. My Pearl version was lost to the ether, and I have no clue where it disappeared to. My Diamond version fell out of my pocket one day and into the linings of my friend's couch, only to be accidentally chewed up by his dog. Wait, I don't mean... It was karma. I action replayed the shit out of that copy. And finally, I sold my Platinum version to a friend because by that point, Heart Gold and Soul Silver had just come out and I was stupid. Speaking of which, I still have my copy of Soul Silver on my shelf and I kept good care of it, even though I lost the case.
It's been a long time since I played Soul Silver. Let's see what I was up to since the last time I played.
Oh no. 4 to 6 days later.
Well, it kind of sucked that I had to blast rush through one of the best Pokemon games of all time, but hey, at least now I can transfer my Pokemon around. There's just one more small problem. My attempt to speedrun through this game didn't work out. Thanks, Lance, and I had to spend way more time with the game than I really wanted to. I literally ran out of time, and I have to go somewhere else, which means I have no choice but to do this. I was supposed to be teleported to my next filming location. Instead, everything just kind of hurts. If I look a bit different than I was, maybe just a tad bit fatter, it's because I had to put the entirety of this video on hold for 4 whole months. As I mentioned in other videos, I really had to focus on school stuff. At least now I can actually focus on finishing this video, making it better, and whatever. But now that I'm here and not at the other filming location, I guess this means my jokes about moving are completely dead. And oh, I just realized I made a SpongeBob time card joke and it's already been ruined. Hey, can we edit that SpongeBob joke? Can we edit that in post? Oh, it's already in? Okay, whatever, that's fine. Let's just continue from where we left off, alright guys?
1 semester later.
Second one, the joke was already made.
Well, that was a fat waste of everybody's time. Okay, where the banana did we leave off? Transferring Pokemon from Gen 3 to Gen 4 took a bit of elbow grease. First you had to beat the Pokemon League of whichever game you were playing, so you couldn't just cheese the game with an overleveled Gen 3 Pokemon team. Next, you actually had to find the transfer location, which in Gen 4 was called Pal Park. Since you're playing Soul Silver, Pal Park can be found in Kanto's Fuchsia City. In the Sinnoh games, Pal Park is south of Sandgem Town, where I believe Raminus Park can be found in modern times, but luckily you can fly there after reaching it for the first time. After coming here, you'll have the ability to transfer Pokemon, which you can then access via the file screen. In Gen 4, this process is called migrating, so I'll use that term for this generation. Now, if you haven't played a Gen 4 game before, you're probably wondering to yourself, Ed, how can you migrate a Pokemon from a very clunky Game Boy to a slightly less clunky DS when the DS doesn't even have a link cable slot? Well, I'm glad you asked, viewer, because what Game Freak did to circumvent this was very clever. This is a very old-styled Nintendo DS. I'm talking the second model to be released to the public. Most of the models of DS only ever had one slot for games dedicated to just DS games, but both the original Nintendo DS and the model of DS Lite that I have right here are special, as they possessed a second slot dedicated to Game Boy Advance games. I think you can see where this is going.
I don't think my grandmother will mind if we borrow her old Nintendo DS for this. Check it out, I have a Game Boy game in the bottom slot, and a Nintendo DS game in the top slot. All systems are go, baby! Let's do a generational transfer.
Again, I don't have a capture card, so while I migrate my Pokemon, I'll explain how this works with more professional footage. Thank you, Maryland. Back in the file menu, just select the migrate option. It will identify what game is in the slot, so if it can't recognize the Game Boy game, you'll know to check if it's actually slotted correctly, and then you can try again. It probably goes without saying, but you need an older model of DS to migrate. If your DS doesn't have a Game Boy slot, you're kinda screwed since there's no alternative to rely on. Now, the migrated Pokemon don't go directly to your box in your Gen 4 game. Like I said, you gotta go to Pal Park to encounter them again. And here's where we get to Pal Park itself. It's kinda goofy. In order to actually use the migrated Pokemon in your game, in my case Soul Silver, you'll need to participate in a little catching game. You're taken to this large space with different landmarks patched around, and you just need to explore the different spots until you find everyone you migrated over. They won't fight you, and the catch will always succeed, so I honestly just kinda ran around in my game until they all showed up. Not really much of a challenge here, but I'm okay with that, seeing as how I already caught these Pokemon in previous games. Oh my god. Maryland actually named his line in fries? I completely forgot he did that. Popsicle. Gobstopper. If you're doing this, make sure to bring a Pokemon that knows Surf, because some ding-dong in Game Freak thought it would be a good idea to place the water Pokemon in actual bodies of water, which is just a hassle if you don't know how the whole thing works or if you forgot this process. The whole thing is treated like a competition, and you get a score based on certain factors, like what Pokemon you migrated over and how fast they showed up for you. But honestly, it's all just smoke and mirrors. You don't actually get a crazy reward for a high score or anything. Once you transfer a group of 6 legendaries, you've pretty much scored the most points you'll ever get in a single show. There are a few more drawbacks to this whole process. If you're playing Diamond, Pearl, or Platinum, there is a ridiculous restriction of migrating 6 Pokemon at a time every 24 hours. I implore you, if you're gonna transfer Pokemon, please use Heart Gold or Soul Silver where there is no dumb time lock.
Well, here's to hoping that all the Pokemon I had from Soul Silver made it into Gen 5 before I reset the game. Speaking of which...
Black, White, Black 2, and White 2 certainly streamlined the transfer process from Generation 4 to here, and yet I find the process once again a bit redundant, for lack of a better word.
Wow, one step forward and another step back? Classic Game Freak!
Okay, for real though. Like the Gen 4 games, you actually need to beat the champion and then find the location where the transfer process takes place on the Unova map. In this case, here. It's actually called Poke Transfer this time. Not as fun sounding as Pal Park, but it serves the same purpose.
In order to perform a transfer between Generations 4 to 5, you don't just need one DS, you need 2. Luckily, any form of DS will do, even the 3DS, and thankfully I also have a copy of White 2 right here. Let's get these Gen 4 Pokemon into my Gen 5 game so I can finally download Pokemon Home.
Is my team even still around? Yeah, I guess I better start looking for them too. And yes, I'm being serious about giving Pokemon Home a fair chance. I'm gonna find out if this software is worth it. Poke Transfer is definitely a step up from Pal Park in some ways. The game goes out of its way to explain the process step by step, so as long as you have a game from both gens and 2 different systems, you can perform a transfer. There's no catching show this time, but your Pokemon don't just blip into your box. Yeah, we got another silly little game to get through if we want to get to our Pokemon. This game is more convenient than the catching show, but it's way more random. All the Pokemon are hiding in a grid of bushes, and you need to flush them out with a slingshot.
What?
You pull the slingshot back with the stylus, aim your shot, and fire these pseudo-Pokeballs at the bushes. It may take more than one shot for a single Pokemon, as they might leap out of the bushes and start hopping away.
What the hell?
There's not much to it other than that. A power-up in the shape of a cloud might appear, and tapping it holds your Pokemon with sleep, but this is the whole thing. It's a harmless little ditty, but the question I have is, why does this little slingshot game even exist? I don't even hate it, I think I'm just more baffled than anything else. In Generation 4, you were actually walking around this park catching your old Pokemon. Here you're just catching them with a bow. Like I said, it's harmless, and it's not like this is the only minigame from Generation 5. Hell, it's not even that far out there. I just remembered the Poffin cooking game from the Sinnoh region, remember that? Anyways, you can only select 6 Pokemon at a time to transfer, but there's no time lock this time. Once you finish the first 6, you can immediately start the process for a new round of 6. You do have to play the slingshot game every time you do this, which can get a little old if you have a lot of Pokemon you want to move around. But compared to the catching show, this process is a bit cleaner and more streamlined even when against Heart Gold and Soul Silver with no time locks.
I know I erased my black version to prepare for a Nuzlocke challenge years ago. This was before I learned about Pokemon MMO. But I still remember my team quite fondly since those games had such a positive impact on my life.
I need to find my Superior, Audino, Jellicent, Zoroark, Liberty Garden, Victini, and Reshiram. I'm positive that I still have them, because I cleared out the box and put all of my black version Pokemon into my white 2 version copy, which I will never erase the file on. A lot of the Pokemon I used in White 2 do overlap with Black, so to compensate, I'll transfer all of my team from Black along with only those from White 2 that are not the same species. Moving down memory lane, it turns out there are only 2, my Ampharos and Event Genesect, which to my knowledge is the only Genesect I actually have. It's already in Pokémon Bank then.
While I search for the rest, I suppose I should talk about something else. Some of you may have heard me mention Zoroark and immediately raised your eyebrows. Well, I used the relocator for that.
I guess I do need to mention the relocator. It's dumb. It's another way to transfer Pokemon over to Generation 5, however, it's super limited. Like, I'm talking only 4 Pokemon obtained through online events limited, meaning that not just any Pokemon of those 4 species will work. 4 hard-to-find Pokemon in a frickin' locked box, impossible to obtain nowadays since, you know, they're event exclusive. And DS Wi-Fi shut down ages ago. The only real benefit to this is that you can send these admittedly powerful Pokemon over as early as the 3rd gym city, unlike with Poké Transfer where you have to beat the main game. But in the end, that's still 4 Pokemon that you most likely don't have, and the relocator can only be used in Black and White, not the sequels. And these Pokemon trigger 2 special events to obtain 2 Pokemon you can't normally find in Black and White, but you can find in Black and White 2. And to top it all off, you have to tell a secret forward code to some random asshole, and only then can you access this stupid relocator. Nobody today can even use this under normal circumstances. This is a stupid transfer process, and this is coming from someone who actually did use the relocator back in 2010. And trust me, none of you are missing a goddamn thing. Oh yeah, and the locked box I mentioned before, that most of us couldn't even download by the way, contains the TM for Snarl. Snarl!
Let's talk about a cool feature now. A 3DS app that connected to the Generation 5 games.
This is Pokemon Dream Radar, a neat little title that I'm sure no one remembers. It was essentially Face Raiders but Pokemon themed. You need to shoot at different colored clouds that are floating around you to receive points. You actually have to look all around you to find the clouds, and I do mean all around. Spinning is fun!
I got a Muna!
Let's go.
There's not much else to this game, but you are able to obtain quite a few Pokemon playing this, and they can all be sent to your box in Black and White 2 the next time you boot it up. And the fun doesn't stop there. Back when Black and White 2 were first released, Pokemon Dream Radar was the way to get your hands on the Theran forces of nature, one excluded. Since then, we were given multiple ways to get our hands on these Pokemon, but like the other games like this, there's something about obtaining the legendary genies in this way that gives a sense of satisfaction.
I'm not about to play this game a bunch of times to get my hands on Pokemon that, well, I already have multiples of. But I think I will boot this game up again, just for the sake of nostalgia, you know?
Alright, and with that, we have a few more lab rats to add to the pile. And now that all of Gen 5 is out of the way, does that mean... Oh, yes! Yes, I think it means we move on to the next era of Pokemon time travel, and it's a big jump this time. Oh, wait. Actually, before we jump in, I'd like to give you all another, let's call it a Pokemon history lesson. Here we stand at the beginning of the modern era. Modern era. Back in early 2014. What year is it right now? Oh my god, I'm old. Pokémon Bank was released 5 months after X and Y, and I gotta say, when that service finally dropped, it was like Christmas in February. Everyone was excited to bring their old teams over for use in the 3D era, right up until a few months later when Pokémon began setting up their online tournaments, revealing that the little blue pentagon was not just a cute little stamp, but rather a passport showing your status as a legal citizen of the Colossian Republic. People started going, looking for trades, Colossian-born Pokemon only, and how about a battle? Please use only Colossian-born Pokemon. You would have thought that the release of Pokémon Bank was just a well-kept prank. You see, everyone brought over their Pokemon from their Generation 5 games using Bank as soon as it released, because of course we all did, and discovered that in the stats screen, those Pokemon were missing that little blue pentagon mark that most people didn't understand the meaning of. They would eventually discover that a transferred Pokemon, i.e. a Pokemon that's missing the blue pentagon, in most cases, was actually barred from professional Game Freak hosted tournaments, both on the internet and in-person events. I'm sure most Pokemon players understand the hidden meaning of the mark nowadays, but in case you're still kinda new to Pokemon, allow me to fill you in. That's an origin mark. It's a little symbol that helps a Pokemon game determine what title it first came from, since, you know, you can transfer Pokemon all over the place. All Pokemon captured in a game starting from X and Y to the modern day will have some kind of small symbol on the stats screen. You are absolutely allowed to use any Pokemon with one kind of origin mark in a game that houses a different origin mark. Galar. The mark is used mostly in the background within the game's coding to help the specific game determine if it was caught in said title or not. People mostly make a big deal of this when they need a team for an online tournament in a particular Pokemon game. There's a reason why they put these limitations in place. It's so that you can't just spam your perfect IV Landorus from Black 2 in every tournament you sign up for. Only a few of them.
Keep in mind, none of this is really important for the sake of this video. I'm just bringing it up because, well, we're going to be seeing a lot of origin marks in the future, bank, home, etc. I figured it would be a nice bit of trivia for anybody not in the know, you know?
In case you're wondering, the pentagon symbol is used for both XY and ORAS. However, I always refer to it as just the XY pentagon because, you know, fuck ORAS.
The date is, well, the date's not really that important right now. What's important is that at this moment, as I'm recording this, I mean, the 3DS and Wii U eShop is still up and running. In the words of people that are more famous and popular than me, let's just jump right into the second most important part of this video. Pokémon Bank. To the bootleg recording booth!
The hell is this?
This is my eventual recording set. I can't rely on Maryland anymore. I gotta get this next part on my own.
So in other words, this part of the video is going to be...
shitty, yes.
Ah.
This service was the ultimate game changer for Pokemon. On the surface, there isn't much to really play with, and there really isn't much to say about playing the game by itself. But what's important here is that for the first time since Pokémon Box for the GameCube, you can store and organize all of your collected Pokemon into one place. All you needed to do was pop a Pokemon game into the 3DS slot and you had immediate access to way more space to store Pokemon than I think what the public had in mind. 3,000. Holy shit, that's a lot of Pokemon to store. As I'm sure you all know, I already have Pokemon in my bank account, because of course I do. So how about we finally bring forward my teams from the past and welcome them to the modern era? Well, I guess with Pokemon Home out now, this isn't exactly modern anymore now, is it? Quick recap, because I'm a living waste of time. In Sapphire, we have Castform, Manectric, Absol, and Aggron. In Soul Silver, we have a crippling urge to hit Lance with a pipe.
Let's try and clear this up, okay, Pumpkin? What hurts more? A or B?
In Black, well, surprisingly enough, I could only find Ampharos and Zoroark. In Dream Radar, we have Munna, Swablu, and Riolu. And finally, we have 13 Pokemon unaccounted for. But now, it's time to find them! You can't actually transfer anything to Pokémon Bank using Pokémon Bank. Or in order to get Pokemon from Gen 5 into your 3DS, you actually need to buy a separate title on the eShop. If you're watching this video past March of 2023, you're gonna have to find a friend to help you, since these apps on the 3DS are no longer available. If you are watching this video before March of 2023 and you have any interest in transferring Pokemon, for the love of God, get both of these applications on your 3DS right now, before it's too late.
I can't even really blame Game Freak with this one. Look, I get it. The Nintendo 3DS is getting close to retirement and Nintendo wanted to focus on their Switch titles. And that's fine. The problem is, once that magical date hits and the eShop really does shut down, literally everyone who doesn't have Bank or Transporter are completely locked out from getting those games ever again. And that sucks.
One more time for those of you in the back of the class. If you're a Pokemon fan, get these games right now. Okay, now where was I? First of all, let's talk about Pokemon Transporter. Pokemon Transporter takes the first box in your Gen 5 storage system, and anyone within it is whisked away to be used in Generation 6 or 7. That's a max of 30 Pokemon at a time, no silly minigames, and no godforsaken time lock. Luckily, you don't gotta worry about forgetting HMs on any Pokemon, thank God. But you do gotta remove items, which alright, it's not like they're actually gonna be useful in Pokemon Bank or anything. But if you forget to take away items before booting up the program, you have to walk of shame back to the original game and waste more time. Like what I just did, even after using this software for years, because I'm hopeless. Send an adult. That's it actually. After your Pokemon are transported, make your way to Bank where the Pokemon are ready to be organized the way you want them. So let's just move right to Bank, and hopefully we won't be here long because Lord Almighty, I'll be old and bald by the time we get to Pokemon Home. I mean, how long is this video? How long is it, Future Ed? Anyways, welcome to the now obsolete but absolutely necessary Pokemon Bank. I'll give it a quick review since it's still a pretty important tool for Pokemon trainers. It's fine. It's fine. But is it worth the $4.99 a year price tag? Honestly, no. No, it's not.
But that doesn't matter anymore because as of March 27th, 2023, the service will be completely free of charge for the unforeseeable future. You know, with that tiny little asterisk at the end that says anyone who doesn't download Bank before that date can never buy it again.
I'll get back to this topic again later, but for now, let's just look at Pokemon Bank as a service. First of all, you can't access Pokemon Bank on its own. Like I said, you need to have a Pokemon title actually in your 3DS if you want to access it. No game, no way to use your bank. Oh, but this isn't a problem if you downloaded a Pokemon title. It's only a hassle if you have a physical copy. Anyways, we have an insane total of 100 Pokemon storage boxes holding 30 Pokemon each, making the grand total of Pokemon you can store in the bank 3,000. That's quite generous. I'm not being sarcastic, by the way. That's more than 3 times the total amount of Pokemon even in the modern day. At least as of the end of Generation 8. I think it's great. The execution, or more specifically, the quality of life, not so much. Don't get me wrong, it's a great service and I've used it with no real issues for years. But let's just say that the tedium of using Pokemon Bank actually makes me kind of excited for Pokemon Home. I cannot believe I just said that. Let's go over the basic outline of how Bank works. You have the Bank storage boxes available on the top screen, and the storage system of whatever game you have in your slot in the bottom screen, and they function at the same time. Moving a Pokemon from, let's say, Pokemon X to Pokemon Bank is as easy as picking up the Pokemon on the bottom screen and moving them over to the top screen, and voila! You now have a Pokemon stored in Bank. And if you want a Pokemon back in X, just move it back down to the bottom screen. Simple enough, right? Now, alongside your 100 boxes in the bank, you're also given 10 storage groups to organize them around in. And it shows how many boxes you have in every group. When you first boot up the software, all 100 boxes are in Group 1. Time to get creative, am I right? Here's what I did. I designated 3 particular groups as categories to store Pokemon. The first group is my Pokedex, which contains my current lineup of 1 Pokemon each from Bulbasaur all the way to Blacephalon, only missing Marshadow because, well, I only have 1 and I use it in my actual team. The next group contains my Pokemon teams, from the lineup that I used to beat the story campaigns to my Nuzlocke survivors, and even my actual competitively trained partners. Oh, so that's where Marshadow currently is! Finally, there's the Everything Else folder, which I labeled as Miscellaneous. Wait, is that how you spell it? Well, my bank is pretty scrambled right now, and I also have to move the Pokemon I brought over from White 2 into their proper place. So let's take some time here and try to organize these buggers. I lasted just under 45 minutes. 45 minutes! And after that, I went, yep, I'm doing the rest off screen. Disregard my garbage tier recording system. That wasn't even the problem here. Here's the thing. You have the ability to move entire groups of Pokemon around no problem, but you can't move Pokemon between 2 different groups. You instead have to register individual boxes into the group you want, and any Pokemon inside those boxes are then moved to the group. Now, that wouldn't be so bad, but you can't move actual boxes around within the groups, nor can you get an outlook on your boxes as a whole. So, if you have 99 boxes filled with Pokemon registered in Group 1 only, you have to manually scroll past box after box to get to the one you want to look at. I encountered a dilemma where I wanted to place 30 Pokemon in a single box into the first slot of my Pokedex group. Unfortunately, some Pokemon were already occupying that slot. All I really needed to do was swap the position of these two boxes, but there was no option in Pokémon Bank to do that. I instead had to move those few Pokemon out of that box to another that had some free space, pick up the group of 30 that I wanted to move in the first place, drag them all to the correct box by moving past all of the other boxes one after the other, place them down, then rename the boxes so as not to get confused. I might have just missed the option to do this, but I tried looking everywhere, so I think that's an actual issue worth bringing up. There's no option to rearrange groups. I want to move the Pokedex group to where the miscellaneous group is at the top of my group list. Guess what I gotta do? Go on, guess. I'm gonna be here all day. So, what else is there? Like all Pokemon games and applications, you can view any Pokemon stats in here. And yeah, Pokémon Bank is more of a place to store your Pokemon more so than a gallery to view them. The usual stuff is here, stats, moves, ability, but honestly it's pretty minimal. The Pokemon visual depiction is the pixelated avatar you see on the team's party screen. I would have much preferred a more detailed stats screen here, but maybe Pokémon Bank was being minimal on purpose. For a subscription service, oh my god! The search function is surprisingly helpful here. You select a Pokemon and it gives you a list of all Pokemon of that species that you have. From there, just go down the list and bam, less time wasted. Oh my god, I have 4 Zygarde and one of them is shiny. Oh hey, look at that. I had a second Genesect after all. Neat. Finally, there's the Pokedex itself. And I gotta be real, I didn't even know that Pokemon Bank had a Pokedex. You have to hit the menu button that's hiding in the corner to get to it. It records every Pokedex entry for every Pokemon that you connect to your bank file, including multiple games, so that's pretty cool. Oh, there's the sprite art hidden away in the Dex. It's not the same as looking at your own hard-earned Pokemon.
And that is a quick review of Pokémon Bank. I may have sounded a bit pessimistic through most of that, I understand, but I do agree that it is a very respectable piece of software. You know, despite its minimalistic HUD and absurd price, I stand by its usefulness to Pokemon trainers and I do recommend it. Sorry, did I say I recommend it? I mean get it. Now, before it goes away. Also Pokemon Transporter, I'm not kidding. Download them, get them, before they go.
Hey! Also check out my other
Hold it! What?
What the banana are we doing back at Pokemon Crystal? Did I make a mistake somewhere? Well, yes, I booted up Pokemon Crystal instead of the superior Soul Silver, and that's a bummer. But that doesn't matter now, because as I mentioned, there's still one more generational jump that we can do before we reach our final stop. Well, kinda? We just got done talking about this, huh? Yeah, you can use Pokemon Transporter on the Gen 1 and 2 games, specifically the versions that were released on the 3DS eShop. Just like the Unova games, the app will take the first box in your PC and move them all one way to bank, which is a nice touch. Pokemon taken from these virtual re-releases will always have their hidden abilities, surprisingly, including the legendaries, which makes using the Pokemon Transporter here kinda worth it. I actually own both Pokemon Red, Blue, and Crystal on my 3DS. Both Gen 1 games actually came pre-downloaded when I bought my 3DS, so I think I've earned the right to gloat right here. I bought Crystal and decided to do a Nuzlocke on it, seeing as how I never actually got to enjoy a Gen 2 game. Did I enjoy my time with it? No! Nuzlocking this game was torture. There wasn't even a big enough variety of Pokemon. All the wild Pokemon were too low leveled for the entirety of the game. And 80% of all trainers I came across used the most infuriating of tactics to win, blowing themselves up.
What is it with the Johto region completely screwing me? First I have to redo Soul Silver, and now I'm just getting bombarded by bad luck in a Nuzlocke. Hey, you better not transform into an Espeon or an Umbreon. I don't need any more bad luck.
I finally won after 3 attempts. I caught 26 Pokemon in this game. 11 of them died. I was so frustrated by the end that I broke the unspoken rule of Nuzlocking and overleveled my entire team. Jordan the Typhlosion, Metronome the Togetic, Moldover the Shuckle, Magnet Man the Magneton, Barbara the Gligar, and Reginald the Dragonair. These partners of mine all survived the hell that is a Gen 2 Nuzlocke, and as a result, when we arrive at our final destination, they'll be placed in a special box, the Nuzlocke Survivors box. And also my team from Blue skipping my illegal Mew will be sought out as well. But they weren't part of a Nuzlocke, so they can join Castform, Genesect, and the rest in their own box. We've seen a lot today throughout Pokemon's history, haven't we? I tried my best to steer this little fairy through time and space and guide you all through as much as Pokemon's connected history as I could. But as much as we covered through this journey, we still have our final destination to reach. The latest and biggest method of Pokemon organization. What awaits us at the dock of the present day? Will we see the cracks and weaknesses of modern day Game Freak? Or will I eat my scathing words and be blown away by some breathtaking applications? As I said, the ferry may be approaching the final dock, but there's still so much that we'll have to go over even after I moor the ship. Unfortunately, everybody, this is where my Pokemon tour is stopping for now. Life matters have taken a hold of me now more than ever, and I truly do have to return to my life outside of YouTube. I don't know how long I'll be gone, but I promise that I'll be back. And when I return, I hope I'll be able to say that I'll be here to stay. Hey guys, this is Ed. I just broke out the microphone one more time for this video to say thank you so much for watching and enjoying my content up to this point. I wasn't kidding when I said that I have to step away from YouTube for what's gonna feel like forever, but even though I'll be gone, I'll try to throw up some smaller videos so my channel doesn't completely die off. But please don't expect any huge videos like this one. And this goes without saying, but when I do return, the Pokemon Home experience will be my greatest video yet, so I hope to see you all back when I finish our Pokemon tour. Well, that's all I got, guys. Good luck this year.